Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you for joining me. I'm Noah from Go Retro's customer success team. And what I dedicate most of my time to is talking to Scrum Masters, engineering managers, product managers, and more to learn about their retros, their challenges, their successes. We recently started our new webinar program, which means that every 2 weeks we'll have a webinar. One of them will be dedicated to tackling a subject raised by our users. So if you have a subject you would like us to talk about, feel free to raise it up here or through our chat support, or even email me directly. The second one, which I'm really excited to as well, will be our retro talks. And each month we'll have a guest. We'll have a Scrum Master, again, engineering team lead, whatever. People that are running retrospectives, that have a lot of interest in that, have a lot of experiences, and we'll hear about their failures, their successes. We'll have a set preset questions, and we'll check them with different people, see what they're thinking of. And of course, you'll have a chance to ask your questions as well. Today, what I wanted to do is share tips I gathered talking to experts about the facilitator's role, what you should do and what you shouldn't do. So hello again. The first thing I like to do to start meetings with, especially with people I am not familiar with, is start with an icebreaker. I invite you. I know it's a bit difficult sometimes, especially because all the cameras are off, but I definitely invite you to add to your chat your responses. So let's go to the board and see what our icebreaker for today is. By the way, if anyone is not familiar, this is an example of a Go Retro retro board. This specifically, if you're not familiar with, is our feature request board. So if you are Go Retro users and you feel like you're missing anything, feel free to either add here your ideas or vote for the ideas that you agree with and would like to see in Go Retro. You know what, didn't plan to do this, but if we're already here, I'll take this link and share it with you on the chat so you can catch that as well. This is a public board, so it's completely anonymous. Sorry, going back to business, our icebreakers. How did you land your first job? Need to think of what my first job was, really. So again, I recommend if you'd like to share your answers of how you landed your first job. For me, I think my first job was actually a business. I started with my sister. So I started it on my own. But the first actual job working for someone, I think I was going door to door between businesses in the neighborhood to get a job. I actually really liked that job and stayed there for about 2 years. So that is my answer. And I will share with you if I see anything interesting here. Okay, going back. So what is the agenda for today? So we'll start with a really quick intro of Go Retro, who we are and what's our main goal. Then we're going to talk about the goal and role of the retrospectives and facilitators of the retrospective meeting. And we'll take you to each stage of the retro to see what you should do and what you should avoid, right? Our do's and don'ts, and we'll have time for questions and answers at the end. If you do have questions while I'm speaking, feel free to add them, right? You can either put them in the chat or in the questions and answers. I will probably only get there at the end of the session, but feel free to type them along. If I do see something, if I notice something you're asking, I will try to answer it right away. So Go Retro, who are we and what's our goal? Basically, we're a team of developers who are facing some of the most common challenges developers are facing today, right? Like everyone else, we want to deliver more faster. We overplan or underdeliver. We don't get enough out of our retros to help us identify what we're doing wrong and how can we improve. And that's why we decided about 2 years ago when COVID started to take action and decided to first tackle the most important ceremony in Scrum's life, which is the retrospective. And that's where it all begins, right? So we're starting there and we're definitely not stopping there. If anyone has noticed the Go Planning tab, feel free to check it out. Okay, so basically what we're doing is we created Go Retro to try to help you run simple, fun, and easy retrospectives, increase the engagement of your team, and also help you follow up on your action items. So that is it for our team. What is the goal of a retrospective? So I wanted to start with a quick reminder of that, because like I've said, retrospectives are usually the ceremony that most Scrum teams keep, even if they forgot about anything else Scrum related, they usually run retrospectives. But sometimes we forget why we're doing them. And once we forget why we're doing it, a lot of times it leads to drop in the value teams are getting from the meetings. And then people might think it's a waste of time and they don't really bother sharing their opinions. So this is a definition I actually took. So the goal is to plan ways to increase quality and effectiveness through reviewing the previous sprint in regards to individuals, interactions, processes, tools, and definition of done. Okay, so these are all the things we want to cover during the retrospective, which when the output should be generating a set of tangible action items, right? Tangible is a really important word here, that the teams agree with to achieve in the next sprint. Okay, so again, I'm sure you're all familiar with this, but I feel like sometimes we need a reminder, and especially the team as well, not just the facilitators. Where do you fit in, the facilitators? What is the role of the facilitator here? So basically, our role is to create a safe place for the team to be heard, right? We want to encourage a discussion through curiosity, and we want to get to the bottom of things. We want to ensure that the team generates insights and action items for improvements, right? Remember, as facilitators, you have a lot of power in your hands, and we all know that with great power comes great responsibility. So use your power wisely. I also added the prime directive of retrospectives here. I think that this is a good reminder, an important reminder for both facilitators and the team. So I'll read that really quickly, or not too quickly, sorry, trying to work on my pace. Regardless of what we discover, we understand and truly believe that everyone did the best job they could, given that they knew what they knew at the time, their skills and abilities, the resources available, and the situation at hand. Okay, again, a reminder. Now we can start with the 5 stages of the retrospective, right? You're all probably familiar with these 5 stages. The first stage is setting the stage. And I think it's a really crucial step for your retro meeting. The retro has to be the place where the team feels safe to add their opinions, right? They need to feel like their opinions matter. And in many cases, how you set up the stage will determine how open the team is to share their thoughts. Okay. So the first thing you should definitely do is make it easy for people to join and participate. Okay, so think about where are you running the retrospective, which tools are you using, what time are you using it, right? If your team is across different time zones, what's the best time to run the meeting for? Find a way to share it easily, right? So with Go Retro, you can share the link, have everyone on board and see everything updated right at the same time. Another thing to think about is your camera policy. Are people opening their cameras? Do they know that they're expected to? I feel like this could be a really important step of how the stage is set, right? I feel like for me, it's a lot easier to talk to people when I can see their faces, and I'm sure it's a lot easier for people to hide and be quiet when their cameras are turned off. And this is not what we're trying to achieve here. Next thing I definitely recommend you to do is prepare with a relevant template. So I definitely recommend that you, first of all, think about your template. Are you always using the same template? Are you trying to freshen it up once in a while? What goal are you trying to achieve? So there are a lot of different templates you can use. If you haven't seen that yet, I'll share a really nice PDF right here in the chat. I hope you can see this because I feel like only host and panelists are seeing. Oh, okay, sorry. So sharing really quickly again, the feature board link so that you can all take a look at and add your thoughts, and also the retro templates PDF. Now, different templates can help us achieve different goals. So think about what you're trying to achieve with your team currently and what can help your team express their opinions. I also really recommend, and I really like adding another custom column to the regular template. If it's a kudos column, if it's another sort of icebreaker thing, I like to put like the song of the day or the feelings for the day or how was my sprint in one word. Or we actually just added GIFs, the option to add GIFs to your card. So you can also even do like your feeling or the sprint in a GIF. That's a really cool one. People really like that. So that's a bit about our templates. Another thing you should definitely do is break the ice. Even if there's just a little bit of frost, even if the team is familiar with each other, it's still really helpful. But when the team is not really familiar with each other, when they are in different geolocations, if they've never met before, it's even more crucial, right? The more the team knows each other and feel more comfortable around each other, the better the space feels safe. They're open to talk and actually give their real feedback, right? Okay, we've done already the icebreaker, so you know what I'm talking about. There are other ways to do to break the ice, like I mentioned with the column as well. So that's super helpful for team bonding and creating a safe place. The most immediate effect I feel like the icebreakers have is that once a person unmutes, hopefully has the camera on, to share again, and it could be a very silly story about yourself. They've already started, they've already participated, they already put the foot in the door, right? When they don't have any excuse or something that really drives them to start talking, it's super easy to just stay muted, not talk, right? But if you start talking, it really has a really great effect on your participation throughout the session. I like to think about hiccups. So I suffer from hiccups. And I read, because it's bothering me a lot, I read that the most common cause for hiccups is actually hiccups. So it's kind of like a contraction you have somewhere inside of you, and that contraction leads to more contractions, basically. And I feel like it's exactly the same with participation. You start talking, like me, I can't stop, right? But if I stay quiet and I don't talk at all, it's much easier to keep it that way. So think about that as well. And another thing I would recommend you to do is adding reminders, like I've done before. What is the goal of the retrospective meeting? What's our prime directive? And actually, I was also reminded that another really good reminder to give the team is, what was your sprint goal, right? If you want to talk about how your sprint went, it's really important that we remember what our goal was and if we were able to achieve it or not. What shouldn't you do trying to set the stage? So the first thing is definitely don't expect the same thing will work every time or with every team. So it's possible you ran amazing retrospectives with another team, or your retrospectives so far have been really great. People were really talkative, sharing their feedback, but something has changed. Maybe you've had a really difficult sprint. Maybe there were holidays and the context switching was really difficult for the team members. There could be different things that affect the team, and that's why you need to try different things with different teams, or even with the same team, to get better results each time. Another thing that is kind of linked to it is, don't ignore the current vibe. Even if you've prepared already a template, if you've prepared some stuff that you wanted to try and work with the team for this specific meeting, understand where the team is today and how you should be treating them, right? What do they need? Do they need more time to reflect when they're adding their cards? Where should you put more attention to? Another really great way to understand the vibe is actually running the happiness index poll at the beginning of the meeting to figure out where the team is, or even look at previous meetings and see how is the participation trend. Is it going up or down? How is the happiness? Is it going up or down? And so on. Again, if there are any questions, feel free to add them. Next stage is gathering the data. Okay, so really important stage, of course, of the retrospective. We want people to add their feedback. One really important thing to do is reduce bias and group thinking. So you have to make sure you're allowing for anonymity. You want to make sure that to keep the card's content hidden, to gather more opinions, and hide the votes to reduce, again, group thinking. So in Go Retro, it's really easy, right? With the settings of the board, you can make sure that the cards are hidden. You can't see who the author is, and you can't see the votes until after people have already voted. I think it's really, really important. In some teams, it's not necessary, but with a lot of teams, it really makes an effect. If someone sees a card with the opposite opinion that he wanted to add, a lot of times he might not want to add his opinion, or even on the contrary, if they do agree, I like to see people adding the similar cards, because we can really, first of all, we can merge them, right? And we can really understand how important this topic is. Another thing to do is to add room for appreciation. So a lot of times retrospectives are being really focused on the negative and how can we improve from the negative, but adding room for sharing positive feedback is really crucial to create that trust that leads to that safe space. We really need to make sure to add appreciation, make the team understand that what they're doing. When they're doing something good, we see it, and the team also sees it and appreciates it. And when there's also good things to say, it's easier to also add the maybe less good things to do. Okay, next thing is to make sure that the team understands the feedback of each card that holds before the voting and generating insights. Okay, so a lot of times people are asked to vote on the cards when maybe they didn't really understand what the card says or what the card meant. Sometimes they can even understand the opposite or something a bit different, and that's why it's really important to go over it, right? You don't have to talk about all the cards right away, but just make sure, quickly overview the cards, make sure, even just have the team go over them and make sure that they raise questions if they have any, and only then add them vote for the cards. What you can't do, these are really, really crucial. So you don't judge, right? It's being the facilitator is such a tough role. You're kind of in the middle here, and it's really, really important to make sure you're not judging. Again, this is the #1 rule for creating this safe space I keep mentioning. The team's feelings are valid, right? Even if you or someone else in the team disagrees. If something doesn't make sense to you or someone else from the team, you can ask questions to try to understand better where this is coming from, but you cannot judge. Next thing is, don't take things personally. A lot of times this happens a lot when the facilitator is also the team lead. Okay, the team's feedback is not aimed at you personally, even if you are the team lead, right? It's not against you. The idea here is to improve, and everything that's happening is not just because or for what you're doing, right? So we need to make sure that we remember that, and again, try to encourage ways for improving instead of shutting down because we feel like we're being attacked. Okay, if you are the team lead and you tend to do that, it might be a good idea to try changing the facilitator. And an idea I really like that I've heard is teams that are actually doing round robins with the facilitation job, basically. If you don't have a scrum master, someone that really likes and knows what they're doing leading this discussion, you can try different things. It also helps increasing participation from other team members that are usually quiet, because they're trying to do that. They see the challenges, they understand, and sometimes change their behaviors. Another thing you should try to make sure you don't do is don't allow individuals to take over the conversation, right? Allowing for the loud ones to take over the conversation almost automatically means that the quiet ones will remain quiet, right? And this means that you'll hear the same opinions over and over again, and you will not get the full picture, maybe not even the correct picture, right? This definitely leads to reducing the retro's potential. It's a hard one to tackle, but I think awareness is the first step to solve this problem, right? If you're aware that someone usually takes over the conversation, it's easier to manage that. Try to get other people that are usually quiet to talk before the person that usually takes over the conversation starts talking, or even make sure you're limiting the time a person is talking. We do have the timer that is not meant for that. I've heard some people use it. I think it's a bit controversial tactic, but keep in mind you have that as well. What you should do when generating insights. So the opposite of judging is being curious. You have to ask questions. Reviewing the cards is a great chance for you to ask, be curious, motivate the team to talk, ask people to explain where this is coming from, and check the pulse with other team members, right? How are they feeling about it, and what do they think to add to this? Maintain the focus could also be really difficult. Again, this is definitely your job here to make sure the team and the discussion keeps their focus. Sometimes we tend to jump from card to card, or even when talking about the same card, it can start leading us to different places in the conversation, and that's not where we want. We're missing up on the main point of the cards, and we really need to make sure, we're not shutting off someone's feedback by doing that. Curiosity is contagious here, so it can lead to really making sure you're focused, can lead to a more honest feedback and improve the discussion. And another tip is really, sounds like it's for pros, but it's super important. Lead with questions, not with opinions. So if there's something that is important for you that the team gets out of the retro with, and usually there are, there's at least one of those things, you have to make sure the team gets there on their own. And you can do that by asking questions that allows them to get there on their own. Don't state your opinion. The team can get there on their own, right? And if they do get there on their own, this will be a lot more effective when they want to actually act upon it and the way that they want to act on it. So this is a really good one. What you shouldn't do is, one thing is really important, don't neglect the positive. Like I've mentioned before, a lot of times we really focus on talking about what went wrong, but we really can also learn from the positive. I've heard more than once teams saying during the retrospective, things went well, I don't have anything to say, there's nothing to talk about, there's nothing we should, we can just, maybe we can skip this meeting. And it's definitely something I disagree with. Great insights are easier, great insights coming from good feedback are a lot easier sometimes to execute, and can come out of right where we did well. We just have to preserve what we did well. We don't have to come up with new things, new tactics to figure out how to improve. So definitely don't neglect that. What else? Don't try to cover everything. So all of the cards, right? If you're lucky and you get a lot of feedback and you have a lot of cards, trying to cover everything also takes away from the focus. What I recommend doing is use the votes, sort the cards by votes to make sure you talk about what matters most to the team. If needed, again, a bit more extreme, but could be really helpful, there's also an option to only show the top 5 cards, and then everything else disappears, and you can really be focused on the top cards the team has voted on. What else you shouldn't do? Use quantified data insensitively. So I've heard, and I know that a lot of Scrum Masters or team leads try to add hard data, right? Actual data of how the sprint went. And I think it could be amazing. It can add, great insights to the discussion. A lot of times the meetings are run through our gut feeling. And sometimes it doesn't always go hand in hand with what actually happened during the sprint. So adding this layer could be really, really great. I don't know if you're familiar with our sprint monitoring that allows you to see during the sprint, but also after the sprint, what happened, gives you a lot of insights. We also have a feature called the Joker, which actually adds its insights to your retro card. Objectively, not someone from the team doesn't have to add it, not the team lead has to add it, or the Scrum Master, right? That makes it a lot easier for the team to accept. And in any case, even if you're not using these features, if you want to add this data, make sure you do it being very sensitively. Try to focus on team statistics rather than the individual ones, and add context. So if, for example, we mentioned that we only did 30% of what we actually planned to do, right? So actual versus planned was only 30%. It sounds terrible, and it can really shut off people when talking. But if we say that and we remind the team that, we had, a huge blocker bug that was really affecting all of our work, or there was a holiday, or someone was sick and that really affected the team, then that really makes things look a bit different, and it's a lot easier to take that feedback. Okay. And skipping to the next one. So now is the what to do part, right? We want to decide what we want to do. Action items are essentially what we came here for the meeting for, right? For the retrospective. As a facilitator, you need to navigate the team to generate meaningful ones, right? And tangible ones as well. That's what we mentioned in the beginning. How do we do that? So we need to drill down. It's not just about reading the feedback and creating an action item. We have to understand why. If we don't understand why, we try to treat symptoms and not the actual root problem. The 5 whys is a really common method you could use, right? Basically, the idea is to keep asking why. So if someone said, we planned too much, why did we plan too much? Why did this happen? Why did this happen, right? Asking until we actually get to the bottom of things. This will really help us address, again, the root cause instead of the symptoms, making us find the best way to handle the situation. Another thing you should definitely do is encourage creativeness and empowerment. Okay, so allow the team to be creative, empower them to take action and initiative. Coming from them, right? If they figure out how they want to handle, how they want to improve something that they came up from the feedback, if it's coming from them, the chances are a lot higher that it will actually get done. What you shouldn't do when trying to decide what to do. So first of all, take on all the action items on yourself, especially if you're a team lead. It's really tempting to assign the action items to yourself, but that's not the goal, and it will definitely not yield the same result that you want. You have to make sure that the team members are involved and they take on the items on their own as well. Preferably also follow up on them on their own and report back to the team on what they're doing. Another really important thing is to not overcommit. Going back a bit to the focus I've mentioned a bunch of times, try to not overcommit to many action items or changes, right? In this case, less is more, but it can be a 0, right? So try to choose 2 or 3 things you want to focus on and figure out the best way to tackle them. And the last don't I have here is don't repeat the same action items, I mean. So repeating the same mistakes is one of the things people state that cause devs to basically lose interest and trust in the retrospective meetings. If you're experiencing the same challenges, right? So you've tried something and it didn't work and you're still experiencing the same thing, have to come up with different ways to improve, right? I'm sure you're all familiar with the saying that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Okay, so retros, we're doing the same idea, right? We're trying to retro every time what happened, but we try to come up with different ways to improve, to actually generate this continuous improvement, which is the holy grail, right? And last stage of our retrospective is wrapping up the meeting. First do here is share the recap with the team. So sharing the results of the retrospective sends a great message of the importance of the meeting and its conclusions. You don't want to just export for the sake of documentation, right? A lot of people are required to document what happened, but it's really important to share it with the team as well. Today, if you've seen our new feature, you can actually use the meeting recap instead of the regular export, which creates a really nice summary of today of our action items and all of the cards on the board. Soon we'll be adding some really cool stuff like the participation and all kinds of different statistics on your meeting. So try that out. Another do here is retro your retro. Okay, so retros are valuable for a lot more than just sprints. And I'm sure if you've ran a few retros, you definitely know that already. And I definitely recommend taking some time, even if it's just a few minutes, to think about your retro. Again, in the same phrases, right? What went well, what didn't go well, what could be improved, what basically to try to figure out what changes you can make to get better responses from your team. Because just like the development processes, the team can change, can adapt, can require different things. So thinking about how your retros are and how you can change can really help you generate things, generate different feedback, more participation, and so on, to try to figure out how you're doing with your retrospectives. You can consult the analytics of the retrospective to see how is the participation, how is the happiness over time, and so on. What you shouldn't do. Definitely don't forget to follow up on action items, right? So we've mentioned how action items are basically the base for us to generate this improvement. If we just create action items and keep forgetting about them, that's not going to lead us anywhere, right? Some people I know that are also generating the action items in, for example, Jira or different places. Doesn't matter where you want to manage them, make sure you follow up on them. If you haven't seen it today, we also have the option to see the previous action items from previous meetings on directly to your retro board. And the last don't I have for today is don't share with stakeholders without asking the team. So while sharing the retro results with the stakeholders outside of the team can be a great practice to increase the visibility of the team's amazing work and your achievements and processes, the retro has to be, like I've said at least 10 times today, a safe space for the team to talk. If the team is not comfortable with you sharing the meeting recap, you'll have to figure out another way to share the results and reflect the processes happening to the other stakeholders. Okay, so that is all the do's and don'ts I've had for today. I haven't seen any questions currently in the chat or QA. If I'm missing out something, let me know. If someone wants to raise their hand and talk, I can do that as well. I think that while you're thinking, if you have more questions, I'll remind you that up next in October 25, in 2 weeks from now, basically, we will have our first retro talk with David Pereira. David is a passionate product leader with more than 10 years of experience with agile teams and product management. He publishes a lot of really great articles on different Scrum aspects and challenges, and I'm personally really looking forward to this session. If you would like to join this session as well, I'm just adding here the link to our webinars page where you can see this one, and in the future you'll see all of our upcoming webinars as well. We'll be adding new ones every month, and you'll also be able to see the recordings of previous sessions that we've had. I don't see any questions, so I guess everything was really clear. Hope to see you on the next session as well. Again, if you have any other questions, if you think about something afterwards, feel free to write directly to me or reach out in our support chat with any other questions, anything else you want to talk about. Again, if you have ideas for other things you would like our next session to involve, now is the time, let me know. Okay, so I'd like to thank everyone for joining me today and have a great rest of the day. Thank you.